Hello, all you Valhalla bound cosmonauts. As always, I am Cosmic, and today we're going to be previewing Expeditions Viking, which is a new turn based strategy RPG in development by Logic Artists. Now, developers Logic Artists are, of course, the makers of Expeditions Conquistador, which is a fantastic turn based RPG, very similar in style to Expeditions Viking, and that one is set in 16th century Spain, and the Spanish explorers reach the shores of America, whereas Viking is of course about the Vikings. Now, the great thing about Expeditions is the fact, for me, that it contains no fantasy. Traditionally, when you get a game that is based in some kind of historical setting or it's historically themed, people tend to, instead of going high fantasy, they will tend to go low fantasy, but they will still have a fantasy element in there, so they'll still have spells, they'll still have magic. Whereas Logic Artists have decided that that isn't the way they want to go for their Expeditions series. They want to go completely zero fantasy, and for me, the game is all better for it. So in Expeditions Vikings, you play the role of a newly appointed chieftain in a Viking clan. Your father has just died, and it is your funeral, and suddenly people are coming to challenge your claim to the throne. There are rival clans that are dead set of destroying your clan against you, and your goal essentially is to make your clan strong again. You have to build it back up, you have to defend your clan, you have to go out and pillage and burn and, search for plunder in the various regions of Denmark and further afar. And for me, it is an absolute testament to how good Logic Artists are, because of course you had Expeditions Conquistador, that was a fantastic turn-based RPG, and Vikings look set to be the exact same way. There's very little difference in terms of mechanics and aesthetic. It still looks very similar. The core mechanics are the exact same. It's still top-down, although I wish they would fix the camera. I don't like a completely fixed top-down camera. I would like to be able to tilt the thing so I can see where I'm going, because there's just not enough field of view. So upon starting the game, you have to create your character, and character creation is very simple. It's fairly limited in some aspects, but it does the job for the most part, including the most important part for me, which is of course stats, skills and abilities, which will define your character's role in combat. I opted for the traditional Viking sword and shield, because who doesn't love a good sword and shield? But you can go a variety of ways, including dual wielding, you can go long range with bows, and there's plenty of options to create the Viking that you want. Now, what's most interesting about Expeditions Viking, and this is something that I love about the game, that it's not just an RPG. There are management issues in there. There are different ways to play the game. So you have turn-based combat that works very well, and I'll get into that in a moment, but you have different ways of going about rebuilding your clan. You can go fighting, and obviously that's what Vikings love to do, but you can go and pillage towns, you can go and take on quests, you can do a multitude of things when it comes to, fighting your way to glory. But you can also trade, you can also go the economic route, you can produce things and trade them off with other villages and other clans and, get economic wealth. You also have various politics going on in the game as well. So you're, striking deals with other clans, declaring war on other clans, and there's so many different things going on in the world around you that you are trying to keep your clan safe amidst the war and political turmoil. There are a reputation system in the game that is mostly about making sure that your followers still love you and will follow you to death, and you get house calls, which means that you are acquiring followers as you play the game. People will join you depending on what choices you make, and then it's up to you to make sure that they're still loyal depending on your actions, and depending on what you do, it may lead to one of your housecarls betraying you or leaving you, or it can even lead to a housecarl's death. So as you can tell, before you even get into combat, there are a ton of things in this game. There's a ton of mechanics, there are a ton of systems, and it's got a surprising amount of depth, and this all culminates so far into something that has me very interested. Yes, it doesn't look the best. Yes, it's not something that is going to blow you away visually or audibly, but it's one of those games that really strikes the core of what makes RPGs great. You give us good mechanics, you give us a good setting, and our imaginations are ignited by that. And Expeditions Viking certainly looks like it could tick off that box quite perfectly. Now, when it comes to the combat is fairly traditional. It's a hex-based grid. You move around, you have movement and attack actions, and on top of that, you have various abilities depending on what skill tree you use. Progression is fairly straightforward, and the greatest thing about combat for me isn't in the combat itself, in terms of it's not in the mechanics, because it's a very traditional turn-based system. There's nothing new here in that sense. There's somewhat of a cover mechanic, and it's all fairly straightforward, and anyone who's played a turn-based strategy RPG before will have played this combat. What I did like about it, however, was the animations of certain things. So, for example, when you get hit by an arrow, your character kind of acts like they got hit by an arrow, and they stammer and they fall over, and the camera shakes, and it really gives you that sense of impact. It goes for the sword blows as well. When you break a shield, it feels like you've broken a shield, and that's quite hard to do in a top-down game, and it's something that works very, very well, and something that I was rather impressed with, especially considering that, the visuals, while they are nice, they're not, mind-blowingly brilliant, and it's just a nice little touch to the animation side of the combat that makes it feel more visceral. Now, it won't be long before we can get our hands on Expeditions Viking for review, as the game is set to release in Q1 of 2017, and I have to say it is certainly on my radar where it was not before. I was really impressed with the preview build. I think this game has a ton going for it. The characters, the writing, the story, and the best parts are, of course, the choice and consequence system, the ability to do a multitude of things, not just go fighting, and the various management elements, I think, all blend together to create something that's very interesting and, most importantly, a hell of a lot of fun. There's still a few niggles to work out, including I don't like the character movement, in particular when you're running around and your character just runs like it just doesn't look human, so to speak. I don't like the camera. I think the camera just needs a tweaking just here and there, just so that I can tilt it so I can see what's ahead of me. And what if they work out the few little niggles in the game, I think that certainly they've got a home run on their hands, depending on how the rest of the game turns out, and it's certainly one that I'll be reviewing when the time comes. And that's my previews of Expeditions Viking. Thank you so much for watching and listening. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section below, and as always, I will see you next time.